House in a session.
We commit of announcements by Your Honor, the Deputy Speaker.
We have an announcement from the National Senior Games. The Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs will be hosting the 18th Annual National Senior Games to be held at the National Stadium on Monday, 10th of June 2019 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The Ministry is therefore extending an invitation to you, all parliamentarians, colleagues, to attend this day event. Should you have any queries, please contact the undersigned at telephone numbers 535-1610 or email sherlyn.turton@barbados.gov.bb by the end of May. Your further response is anticipated. Signed, Sherlyn Turton. We also have a message from the Senate. The Honourable the Senate to the Honourable the House of Assembly. The Honourable the Senate has to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that at its sitting on Wednesday the 15th of May 2019, the Public Service Retrenchment Workers Bill 2019 was amended in terms as cited below. Clause 2.2 was deleted. In Clause 3, delete the words Section 2.1 and substitute the words Section 2. And the Honourable the Senate transmit the amended bill to the Honourable the House of Assembly, inviting concurrence in amendments to this bill, dated the 15th day of May 2019. Signed, the President.
Government business.
Government business.
Order number 8, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing and Lands, move the passing of resolution to approve under Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Chapter 225, the vesting in the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. of parcels of land, the property of the Crown, situated at Bay Street in the parcel of St. Michael in this island for the public purpose of tourism development.
Member for St. Andrew.
Mr. Speaker, this resolution seeks to vest 2 parcels of land in the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. First, an area comprising 69 square meters at Bay Street, and secondly, an area comprising 509.5 square meters at Bay Street, St. Michael. This is all part of the tourism development plan for that area, which the Minister of Tourism will elaborate on a little later. You may recall that only last week, 2 weeks ago, we did the acquisition for the lands at Bay Street, where the business, the liquidation center owned by Tiny Tots Limited is located. And that parcel of land is all part of this development. That development also includes 2 parcels of land which were vested in the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. Earlier, an area comprising 2,833 square feet, and another area comprising of 566 square feet. Square meters, sorry. The company Visions Development, Inc., they have purchased the land which is next door, formerly owned by Detco Motors Limited, and that land is part of the whole tourism development project, which will house the Hyatt Hotel project. These two parcels of land, which will be vested in the Barbados Tourism, Inc., will then be sold to Vision Development Limited for the tourism development project. As I said, they have already purchased the land next door, which is the land that formerly housed Detco Motors Limited. The first parcel of land of 69 square meters was part of the original land which was vested, the 2833 square meters, which was vested in the Barbados Tourism Investment, Inc. But this area includes a drain, and it was felt that this drain should not have been included in the original vesting. What has happened now is that Visions, having purchased the land from Detco Motors next door, this land sort of straddles that particular area, and it is important that that particular area be acquired as well. So after the vesting, this area will be sold to Visions as part of the said development. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that this is a transaction which we inherited. It is not one that we have forged on any particular individual, as might be gleaned from some of the comments in the press. And this resolution is just putting Visions Limited, having got the property vested in the Barbados Tourism Investment, Inc., putting Visions in the position whereby they would not have any problems with respect to the transfers. It is all part of the mandate of the Barbados Tourism Investment, Inc., which includes the development of a portfolio of tourism-related properties on its own or in joint venture with private and public partners, managing the implementation of the urban rehabilitation program for Bridgetown, among others, facilitating both public and private sector-owned investment in the tourism and hospitality sector in Barbados. This particular project will probably involve the relocation of certain entities in the immediate area. The Methodist Church, the second parcel of land, is actually the area where the government electrical department formerly was located. This is an area which is very close to the Methodist Church. The parcel with respect to the 69 square meters will be used to accommodate a bridge linking the seaside area to the area on the other side of the road. The developer had obtained planning permission for this bridge. It may not be necessary for this bridge to be a part of the project, but the permission has already been obtained by the developer for the bridge in case it is needed, but it may very well not be needed. But in the event that the bridge is needed. The government has already agreed, cabinet has already agreed, following on the decision which was made by the last administration to a license to the developer for a term of 25 years with an option to renew for a further 25 years. The payment of an annual license fee of $1,000 plus value-added tax. The license fee should be subject to review every 5 years. The developer should be responsible for the cost of construction and maintenance of the bridge. The developer should indemnify and keep the Crown harmless from all and any loss arising from the use of the bridge. The developer should be responsible to keep the bridge in repair and ensure the safety of all users in accordance with the laws of Barbados. And of course, the developer should comply with the laws of Barbados, including the Town Planning Act, Chapter 240, the Highways Act, Chapter 289, and all related regulations and amendments thereto throughout the license. The larger area of land will be used more or less as the platform for the bridge. So in the event that the developers find some other means of moving to the other side, and it is not necessary, well then at that particular point in time, the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. will determine whether or not the property should be transferred to the developer, Visions Development Inc. And I can't stress too much, Mr. Speaker, to say that this is a development which was formulated by the last administration, and we are just continuing governance in this respect. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass.
Member for St. James Central.
I'm obliged, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this resolution pertaining to the vesting of 2 parcels of land at Bay Street, which really amount to 579 square meters, or just shy of that in total, 578.5 square meters to be precise, seems at first blush to be a rather run-of-the-mill and ordinary type of resolution. But behind it, Mr. Speaker, or contextualized within it, if we properly so contextualize, there is the larger issue, which, as I have listened to public comment, especially as recently as Sunday night on national television, when a gentleman who characterized himself as representing the opposition would have reflected a lack of appreciation, I think, for a number of things, not the least of which is the very obvious growth agenda of the government. And I would want, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the time available to me to contextualize this within the efforts being made by the government to drive growth. We have never, Mr. Speaker, taken a position which sought to suggest that you could move almost as though you were waving a magic wand from a state of steep decline where we would have been this time last year, sir, to one of automatic growth without first having to stabilize, as the doctors would say, stabilize the patient, stop the hemorrhaging. That having been done by a number of measures which have already come to this House and about which I will not detain us this morning, we've come, Mr. Speaker, sir, to deal with the question of the next stage. And that next stage in the transformative journey has to be to return the country to a growth path. And Mr. Speaker, the reality is that Barbados has been saddled for a long time with a very dubious proposition, an unsustainable proposition in my view, where you were either going to borrow or, Mr. Speaker, sir, you do without, because we simply were not earning the foreign exchange, which we must earn in order to carry this country forward. And the infliction of pain and hardship on all of our constituents is something that all of us, I would wish to imagine, would want to avoid. We can only realistically avoid it, Mr. Speaker, sir, if we are, in fact, within a growth agenda, so as to enable us to garner and earn the kind of foreign exchange we need and expand the different economic sectors of activity. Tourism is one of those key areas for growth, and it is open, wide open, in my judgment, Mr. Speaker, sir, and that of this government. It is wide open for further future investment and the generation of the type of economic activity and earning of foreign exchange that this country badly needs. But to do this, sir, there are a number of critical factors that had to be taken into account. We have, for example, seen before this House already a debate within a couple of months of taking the reins of government, a debate on a new town planning act and new regulations governing the town and country planning process. And the reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a need for us to do that because of the fact that if you just look at tourism, let's not look at all the other areas that town and country planning impacts on, our agricultural sector, the energy sector, etc. But let us just briefly only look at tourism. You will realize, Mr. Speaker, that there were some clear deficiencies which had to be faced and fixed. Deficiencies, for example, in terms of the height that we can allow new build to go. Because of the fact that we have limited land space in Barbados, obviously a lateral sprawl of properties or horizontal sprawl of properties is not that which is most desirable. And if we can go higher so that you stack rooms on top of rooms without at the same time destroying the image and I suppose, the reputation as well of what an island paradise means, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to find an economically feasible way of doing so while at the same time being sensitive to the environmental and social concern. The new approach to town planning, Mr. Speaker, sir, allows us to do that. We have had in this House before a discussion or a series of discussions as recently as a couple of weeks ago. I would have addressed it. The leader of the government would have brought to this House in her budgetary proposals, Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of gaming tables so that, again, we can broaden the base of revenue streams which the tourism sector can utilize, or an investment in the tourism sector can utilize, so as to generate further interest in investment and therefore greater returns on the investment. The problem that we have had, sir, is that for too long we have seen tourism within the context of doing the same thing in the same way and hoping to get a different result. And therefore we shackle our hands and we shackle our legs and we do not dare ourselves to go beyond that which we did in 1960 because of the fact, sir, that it might be unsafe to do so. There's an element of uncertainty in trying to do something new. And dare he or she who comes with a bold, brand new initiative, sir, do that, then he or she is to be chastised and treated as though it is a form, sir, of apostasy. I don't share that view. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I associate myself with this resolution because of the fact that it enables us to do a few important things in the area of Carlisle Bay. Now, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, Carlisle Bay is arguably one of the most attractive beachfront locations, that crescent-shaped 2-kilometer stretch, one of the most attractive beachfront locations I am hearing in the world. I perhaps, sir, may be a little bit more modest and say certainly in the Caribbean. I confess, though, having seen it both on the water and under the water, and as most Barbadians would have seen it on a daily basis, passing by it on the roadside and on the beach side, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is unrivaled. But what have we done with it? It is populated largely, Mr. Speaker, from the time I was a little boy. It has been populated by the honourable member who piloted this bill, made reference to a company called Detco, the old Detco building. Well, that was what I heard about when I was 6 years old. I don't think I could arguably say that I ever went into that building. I don't think I could truthfully say so, sir. But I do know that it was a place that cars used to sell, apparently. But it's been shut up. And several others along that stretch, sir. The area is populated by obsolescence, obsolete, abandoned, unutilized, ugly-looking structures, sir, on what is the most pristine beach to be found arguably anywhere in the Caribbean, and as I said, I hear some say in the world. Above and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, sir, car parks. There are a number of car parks there as well. Above and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is used to some extent as a dumping ground for abandoned boats and so on. It is not utilized, Mr. Speaker, in a way that will enable Barbados to reap the maximum return that it could reap were we to put the area to proper touristic use, which really it is ideally suited for. It is proximate to and part of the historic Bridgetown and its garrison, and that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Mr. Speaker. It is immediately in front of the government headquarters, which again, may I say, just sharing my own personal view, may I say, is another structure that we may wish to have a serious look at in terms of refashioning and reimagining. Certainly, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a stone's throw from the Barbados Hilton and the the Aquatica, and Radisson Aquatica, and the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, it is an area which would be, because of the fact that there's such a potentiality for hotel investment there, it is also an area which would be suitable for a structure that could host meetings and conferences and events, which is a key component of the tourism industry everywhere in the world, and should really be located, such a structure should be located within a hotel chain area, and therefore be able to suitably complement and supplement the activities of that type of approach to tourism, whether it be conferences and events and so on. But, sir, the reality is that none of those things are happening. None of those things are happening. So if one wishes to have a rebirth of the area, if one wishes to have a reinvigoration of the city of Bridgetown and the constituency of St. Michael South, Mr. Speaker, sir, one has to therefore confront in a serious way these opportunities that lie before us. But even beyond that, for the more short-sighted, I speak to them now. One has to be able to see, Mr. Speaker, a growth trajectory for the Barbados economy, an opportunity for us to have investment in 2 kilometers of beachfront, which we have just allowed to lie idle. Beachfront, Mr. Speaker, sir, before that which is really, or in front of that which is really the country's major marine park. Now, this government has not been constrained and shackled by doing things in the same way. So that last month, this is May, last month, in the last week of April, we held a tourism investment conference here, Mr. Speaker, sir. And the purpose of the tourism investment conference was to invite potential investors from around the world, people interested in ownership of hotels, in development of hotels, the operations of the hotels, to come to see this strip of land, and also, Mr. Speaker, sir, to see other places around Barbados, from as far north as St. Lucie to as far south as in Christchurch, sir, to look at some of the areas that we have here which are ripe in our view and in our judgment for investment in the tourism sector. They came, and as you have heard, Mr. Speaker, said by several people, there's been tremendous expression of interest. And we now have to go through the process of allowing those investors to come back to us with specific proposals and adjust their business cycles so as to fit in investment opportunities in Barbados, while at the same time we look towards the way, to the way forward as we embrace them with a set of concessions that will fit neatly into that which we now do in Barbados for everybody else who has been part and parcel of this country's tourism product for all the years. What we will not do is to go down the wicket like blind elder, as the last administration did, to give away the... Well, the statement really was not meant specifically to reflect on gender. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I just went into the Barbadian parlance. But we should probably lay, I understand the point being made very subtly by the member, Honourable Member St. Thomas, and we should attribute blame where it lays. So we will not go down the wicket like blind St. Clair and give away everything, Mr. Speaker, sir, to one entity. That will not happen, so as to cause chaos and disequilibrium within the sector. There has to be a properly, and no, I'm being very serious about this now. We have to use this opportunity to rethink and to reconfigure that which we call the awarding of concessions in Barbados, so as to restore a sense of reality and a sense of fairness and a sense of a satisfactory way forward for the whole country. Because what now obtains has been disequity, and it has caused a lot of disequilibrium in the system. And that imbalance, Mr. Speaker, cannot be allowed to continue indefinitely. Now, I say all that, Mr. Speaker, sir, to come more directly to the subject matter of this debate, because I do not for one moment want to be accused of not confronting the building called the Hyatt. That is what this largely is going to facilitate. We are saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, that it is 578.5 square meters of land are going to be acquired, and the Honourable Minister responsible for housing has made the point, sir, that it is supplemental to the previous acquisitions that we have done, so that the parcels of land can be vested in the Barbados Tourism Investment, Inc. That which we have to do, sir, is to deal, first of all, let me deal with the developer, because it is, and perhaps best for me, because I don't think anybody in Barbados has been as critical of him than I have. But I have, Mr. Speaker, sir, been critical not of an individual, but I've been critical of a system of government that allowed an individual, or not in this case one individual, but in other cases a select few individuals, to do that which in Barbados the vast majority of people in the country could not do. And that is where I have my beef. That's where I have my difficulty, sir. And I believe that it is correct to say, and I say it without fear of contradiction, that 30 people sitting in this room joined me, 29 people in this house, sir, joined me to make 30, on platforms night and day just over a year ago, so as to make a case in this country against the consolidation of wealth in the hands of a few to the detriment of the many, to the disadvantage of the many. That was the case that was made, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, does it mean that you wish to cease doing business of any type with any developer? No, that would be madness. Does it mean that because a developer got a preferential, or what appears to be preferential treatment from a previous administration, that that developer is to be treated as though he or she is not part of that which we call Barbadian society? No, that too would be madness. But what it does mean, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that you engage with people in a different format and in a different structure, so that they have to understand now that there's a new sheriff in town, and that the sheriff's requirements are that they do business in a different way. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the Hyatt, I can say that I sat in the presence of the Prime Minister, together with Minister Humphrey, the Attorney General, and a couple others. when we would have had an opportunity to discuss the issues that are now before this House with respect to the developers' obligations. And it has been made very clear, sir, not only to that developer, but to several others. Indeed, part of the way in which we sold and packaged the investment conference to all potential investors who come to Barbados' shores. And I want the Leader of the Opposition to try to internalize this so that he could pass the message on to those who proselytize on his behalf. Because I can't find them in here, and I never will. I don't suspect they will be located in here at any time in the foreseeable future. But that they proselytize on his behalf is something I can do nothing about, but I want them to get the message. I really don't know many of them because they're not well known to the general public either, other than the fact that one or two of them, I am told, left hefty chunks of money in the Treasury after having lost deposit last year around this time. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that the message that has to go forth is that we are sitting with investors and developers, potential developers, and saying to them that there will be, under this administration, a willingness to use planning gains, public gains, so that you do not now come and simply say, I want to get access to that piece of land, or walk out the minister door, the minister office door, knowing in the heart of hearts that you got what you want. What we say to them is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that you have to take the country along in the process. And I will go into great detail as to why that is necessary. But what we are saying, sir, is that if you want to have an opportunity to be an investor in Barbados in a project of substance in this country of significance, then, sir, the town planning permission is tied also to considerations of how the society benefits, not only you one, not only your one, but how the society can benefit. How does the society benefit, sir? The people from the constituency of St. Michael's South need to have the benefit of sporting facilities. The people from the constituency of the city, Mr. Speaker, sir, need to have the benefit of improved housing. The people from the constituency of the city, Mr. Speaker, sir, want to have recreational facilities. The people from the constituency of St. Michael's South, Mr. Speaker, sir, want to have opportunities for them to get involved in commercial activities that benefit them, and those commercial activities should and could be tied to the tourism investment that is taking place. Never before in this House, Mr. Speaker, did we have a Prime Minister who was prepared to come and make that on the floor of the House or before the public a precondition to the doing of business in Barbados. And for that, she should be congratulated rather than criticized. But we have those proselytizing out there who go on national television and tell you about growth. Well, you can't achieve the growth unless you first understand and bring yourself to understand that you have to build a platform for the growth. And that's what this is about. It don't just happen hocus pocus, there's growth. You have to build a platform for the growth. He who seeks knowledge begins with humbleness. And that is perhaps what is lacking in that which calls itself an opposition today. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue or the concept of the public gains means that you are empowering people from the communities, specifically, therefore, the neighboring communities around the Hyatt, which would be the people in the city of Bridgetown, for example, the people in St. Michael's South, for example, and St. Michael's South Central. No, Mr. Speaker, sir, let us realize when we talk about what will be, initially the concept was a piece of land to build this hotel on, so it's going vertically all up in the air. We broadened the footprint of it conceptually now, so that it would take two or three pieces of land. And part of the presentation of the Honourable Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, was, not Right Honourable yet, that time has not yet come, but the Honourable Prime Minister, is that no, I mean that Her Majesty's Privy Council has not yet bestowed upon her the title Right Honourable. But I have no doubt that too will come to pass. And the point is, Mr. Speaker, that you're now talking about three to 4 properties that will be incorporated. And as the Prime Minister made the point in her budget presentation, that one of them will be utilized specifically for the purpose of facilitating commercial activities by vendors, and we would want them to be drawn from the neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods, so that they can be plugged into the economic activity, which is the hotel operation. But I'm challenging anybody now in Barbados who is decent Christian and fair-minded to find fault with that. Because that is what we have to do. Through no fault of anybody in this House, Mr. Speaker, sir, we find ourselves in a situation where the government of Barbados cannot carry on its back the weight of employment that sunk this economy any longer. And so, therefore, those adjustments had to be made. Nobody can dispute that. So realistically, now we have a situation where we must find opportunities for people to earn a living. My approach as Minister of Tourism, sir, has been to say that which this country should have heard long time ago, that tourism, sir, must be the entity which drives economic transformation in Barbados, and that every Barbadian should feel that he or she should have a stake in it as a process. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, tourism cannot be about foreign investors and be by foreign investors, in the interest of foreign investors, operated by and owned by foreign investors to the benefit of foreign investors, full stop. It has to be about our people. And that is why, sir, next door to the leader of the opposition, 2 Fridays ago, we went down to Pelican and launched a brand new product, where we brought craftspeople from the community, including his constituency. We have brought food vendors from neighboring communities, including his constituency. We have brought, Mr. Speaker, sir, entertainers, so that they can all be part of the process, sir, of being connected to the cruise ship industry. Never before has it been done. And now, on Friday, may I say, Mr. Speaker, sir, a couple days from now, there will be 2 cruise ships, not 1. 2 of them have now agreed to stay in port an extra 5 hours so that they will be able to participate in this process, sir. And we bring down then the land-based people so that there is now, on the other side of the island, there's another choice. Just like the indigenous, authentic, legitimately Barbadian experience called Oistins, we have now festive Fridays in Bridgetown. Because we want to plug the ordinary working class people of Barbados into the tourism product so that they must be part and parcel of the process. Now, beyond the idea, sir, of the planning gains, there is the question of the type of the tourism product that we want to build out. And here again, the issue of the developer becomes one that I want to address square on. The developer, sir, must not be seen as somebody, whoever that developer is going to be, in whatever property we're talking about developing. Because the developer has a history of a relationship with a previous government, don't mean, first of all, that you can't do business with the developer. It has to be that you set the terms of engagement with the developer. I want to say that again. Because the developer may have a history with a previous government, it doesn't mean you can't do business with a developer. It means you have to set the terms of the new engagement with the developer. And the failure of the last administration was this: they did not set terms of engagement that were satisfactory to the eyes and even the nostrils of the public. We are determined not to go down that road. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard then to the question of the type of development you want, we want developers to understand whether they are local or whether they are foreign. And may I say, lest there be a misinterpretation, when we had the investment conference, we did a special part of that investment conference for local developers, giving them all the access to all the information with regard to all of the properties that have opportunities before we went to the foreign investors, so that we gave locals pride of place, first bite at the cherry. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is only obvious that Barbados does not possess the degree of wealth that will allow for all the investment to come from within our shores, so we have to welcome foreign investment as well. But whether it is foreign or local, I want there to be an understanding that there has to be a parameter within which the investment takes place. That tourism in this country, sir, must not ever be allowed to go down the road of tourism in parts of the Northern Caribbean in particular, where they have bought into a mass-based product. There's nothing perhaps more dangerous than having the mass-based product superimposed or placed on top of, let me not use the language that the ordinary man can understand. Take a multi-million-dollar property, $500 million US of investment. Build it, yard walls put up, Mercedes-Benz rolling in through the gate, Cadillacs rolling in through the gate and rolling back out, Rolls-Royce rolling in through the gate and rolling back out. But right next door, Mr. Speaker, sir, people using, across the road, 2 miles down the road, people are still using a pit toilet. Across the road, people still living in a board house that want fixing. Across the road, people are still unemployed, and you put guards to the front of the hotel gate so that you don't allow them close proximity to the people who are unemployed on the outside. I have seen it firsthand in Panama, sir. I've seen it firsthand, sir, in Jamaica. I've seen it firsthand, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Mexico. I've seen it in the Dominican Republic firsthand. And I've seen, sir, the type of social discohesion that takes place. That there is a feeling, sir, that the tourism product is for them, but it has nothing to do with me. And that, sir, causes the local to feel a sense of antagonism towards the tourists. And it causes the tourists, who is necessary for an island economy, to flourish. It causes the tourists to feel that they are in danger and that they have to take extra precautionary measures. Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't think that that should ever be something we allow to happen in Barbados. And therefore, it is my judgment, sir, that the developer and developers must feel that they have an opportunity to make an investment in this country, knowing that by their commitment to helping uplift Barbados by way of the social or the planning gains, whatever form those planning gains may take. In the city of Bridgetown, for example, sir, the honourable member for the city may feel that the planning gains should be to help make sure that we completely eradicate all pit toilets from the city of Bridgetown. He may feel that the planning gains should be more focused on recreation and so on, and facilities for sports. That is a judgment that will be made at the appropriate time. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that what we must do is to find a way to tie the developer, a percentage of the investment, to the uplift of the social and economic fabric of this country. Now, I know, sir, you've been in the House for a long time, and I know that you're not accustomed hearing tourism ministers speak to the House in this way, but it is part of the way forward for the future, Mr. Speaker, sir. It has to be about uplifting and carrying along the people who have been left behind. And in urban Barbados, as the Prime Minister constantly reminds us, in urban Barbados, people have been left behind since independence. And many societies have been dismissed, especially in the city, as having slums, when, sir, they should be treated in a far better way. The time now, their turn come. Their turn has come, and this administration will not be unkind or unfaithful to them. Now, the reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if we want to have the type of tourism product that I've just outlined to you, one where there can be a smooth interface between the guests and the community, where we encourage our guests to walk out of the hotel and walk down the road to Oyston on the south coast, where we encourage our guests to walk out of the hotel and hop in a bus from the Hilton to take them up to Oyston and then hop in a bus and come back down, where we encourage our guests, Mr. Speaker, sir, if they want to go to the Festive Friday experience in Pelican, to hop in a bus on the west coast and come along up and walk across the Pelican. Mr. Speaker, sir, that ease of interface has to be encouraged. And the only way that it can be encouraged is if we make sure that poverty anywhere is not a threat to prosperity everywhere. And therefore, our attack, sir, has to be on the poverty, the persistence of poverty in this country. We can only solve that issue. Yes, from the book is a quotation from George Beckford. I think, and he also, the honourable members have been doing some reading. That's what I like about this parliament. In the last parliament, sir, you would not have found many people who recognize those quotations. Those fellas were allergic to letters and literature. The only thing they read was the bank book. The only book they read was the bank book. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality is, the reality is that the ease of access to an authentic Barbadian cultural and social experience is what we are seeking. And it therefore means that government cannot be about penalizing a developer because a developer got a good deal from a bad administration in the past. Government has to be about making sure that developers understand that the days of bad deals being deliberately made are over, and that henceforth there is a responsibility on their part that they too must play their part in the process. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we go forward, that we set our parameters in such a way that we can satisfy the country that there's been everything in our power done by way of ensuring transparency and openness and fairness in the awarding of contracts, and also, so, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there's a certain standard to the way in which we do business in Barbados. Now, though it is not located at Bay Street, I also want to speak, Mr. Speaker, sir, because I am conscious of the fact that the developer here is always going to be a target. Because the developer here has had his hands in so many pots around this island in so many business ventures. And when I speak on Sunday night in Carlisle Car Park, I will speak to this issue at some detail. But what I want us to understand here today, Mr. Speaker, sir, what I want to understand here today is that some of the transformational things that have happened in Barbados that people now within a year want to pretend did not happen could only have happened if we were dealing, or because we were dealing with a developer who, whatever his past experiences may be, was without question a developer who was prepared to put the interests of Barbados in front when called upon to do so. Now, sir, the Ministry of Tourism, within a couple weeks of coming into government, was called upon to make sure that we could facilitate Ross University with the LESC and Ross University coming together in a partnership. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, I listened the last time we had a debate on this nature to the Leader of the Opposition. Now, he spoke after me, so I can reply to him. But I understand, I remember well that which was hinted. And I want to say, sir, that, you know, it is all well and good for us to be glib about certain things. When you have 1,800 students on an island, finding accommodation, buying food, engaging in recreation, engaging in transportation, shopping, Mr. Speaker, sir, all the things that we know students do, as they, I'm mining at that age, but I know I got children who bleed my pocket because all they like to do is spend money. The reality, and the spending the parents' money so it don't humbug them, you got to rein that in. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have 1,800 such here as a result of Ross University. And every one of them is contributing indirectly, sir, to that which we call the tourism experience, because they are here as 9 months of the year, they are long-stay visitors. But then above and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, sir, they're contributing to the Barbados economy. And we have to understand that you cannot forever be caught in a time warp where your only politics is the politics of a personal focus on a developer, when without I do not know where else in Barbados we were going to find an opportunity to house these students at short notice. Or perhaps we should not have housed them at short notice. Perhaps we should have let the business go elsewhere so as to give a person in an opposition party the opportunity to say, well, they ain't getting nothing to happen in Barbados, because you can beat your chest in this country today and find glory in finding weaknesses and identifying opportunities for agony and opportunities for pain and opportunities for suffering in this country, rather than recognize that we have come out of a 6-foot-deep hole and are climbing our way up, Mr. Speaker, sir, back up to the glorious days positions we were in before, but that it takes time and that it takes effort, and that at least as you watch the improvements take place before your very eyes, you could be honest and truthful to yourself and say, well, look, if it wasn't for these fellas, we wouldn't be here now. And if it wasn't for this Labour Party government, Mr. Speaker, sir, there'd be no Ross University in Barbados. And the benefits of the Ross University would not be being felt in Barbados. And sir, the reality is that, as I said to you, I can speak a little bit about some of these things Sunday, but I am adamant that what we have to be very clear about, sir, is that this investment in the Hyatt is something that is useful for the investment climate in Barbados to continue. It is useful, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the build-out of our tourism occupancy. And that is perhaps another point that I should speak to this House about. You know, when we had World Cup cricket here earlier this year, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a night when a Virgin Atlantic plane could not take off because it had engine problems. But on that same evening,
At the World Cup.
World Cup, sorry, I said, sorry,
English
it
tour.
was almost like a World Cup when we,
Yeah.
when we
We
lambasted
understand,
England
English
here.
tour.
When we lambasted England.
Right.
It had some engine problems, sir. 300 passengers, they were here. That evening, the rooms that they left empty were filled by people coming in. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, that at 2 in the morning, my phone rang. Minister, we have a crisis. There was the Virgin Atlantic plane, and then there was another one, a Thomas Cook, that had developed problems later in the night. We have 2 planes on the ground, 500 passengers, but we have no place to put these people. And there is no likelihood of getting those people out of Barbados before another day and a half at best. That was the crisis we had. There was no room in the country. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it tells us, and why? Why? Because with the last administration, we saw room stock in Barbados decline rather than grow. And I want to be fair to my predecessor, who recognized that this was a problem. And Mr. Speaker, sir, and I would be unfair to this House if I did not say to you that this government also recognizes it is a problem. And that is why it is critical to have the investment in the tourism sector so that we can build out more room stock. The vision of the Prime Minister, indeed, is that we double the room stock we have within the next 5 to 6 years. And the fact of the matter is that if we do that, we also put ourselves in a position to double the amount of spend that we have within the next 5 to 6 years, which is something that we must do if tourism is to pay the bills that it should pay. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, we cannot get to the point of building out the room stock if time after time we try to put pitfalls and obstacles in the way of trying to make sure that the build-out takes place. It makes no sense coming here, identifying the problems, speaking, in some cases, sensibly to the problems, and then doing nothing to make sure that we accelerate the process towards solving the problem, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I know Barbados can do, in terms of what our feedback is from the markets out there. Barbados broke a record last December in terms of arrivals. At the end of December, we had 687,000 and a few more arrivals for the year. I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, we can do better than that. It was a record-breaking year, but we can do better than that. And the only way that we can continue to grow is if we continue to make sure that we have the investment in bedrooms to accommodate the people who we're trying to bring to our shores. You can't say it is your bread basket and then you cut a hole in the basket, sir, and let the bread drop out. So I made the point that this is another reason why this particular aspect of the debate is critical, because what the Hyatt represents in clear and specific terms is an opportunity for us to be able to accommodate more people as guests in Barbados. And on a strip of coast, sir, as I said to you, which is ideally suited for the build-out of several more hotels. Now, therefore, it means also that this country has to become engaged in a number of other things that we are not talking about, but I want us to focus on. It is perhaps a fool's errand, sir, for anybody in Barbados. It is a fool's errand for anybody in Barbados to come and try to make a robust and sensible argument about a government failing or a government succeeding in the space of 1 year, when we all know, first of all, that in the life of an administration, you're granted constitutionally 5, but very often you take around 4 or 3.5. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we consider where we come from and where we are today, I don't even understand how the issue arises. We are, sir, in an economic recovery and transformation program. We are in an economic recovery and transformation program. I hear the criticism, Mr. Speaker, sir, of the fact that, oh, well, the government only gave a 5% wage increase to public servants. Let us not forget that for the 10 years before that 5% wage increase, Mr. Speaker, sir, government gave nothing. Let us not forget that. Let us not forget, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this same government that I heard somebody on the television on Sunday night make the ludicrous comment about, saying, oh, we tend to say that you're doing anything because you feel sorry for poor people. But how could you say that when you create trust loans, and the Honourable Leader, the opposition, say he was the first trust loan dispenser. He said so in this house, didn't he? He did that. He said that. And Mr. Speaker, sir, you recreate trust loans so that across Barbados today, ordinary Barbadian men and women are able to go, whether they want to get $1,000 to help set up something to do some nails, whether they want to set up something to do hair. Mr. Speaker, sir, whether you wish to go and buy umbrellas and so on, so you can be dealing with beach chairs and so on the beach. Whether, Mr. Speaker, sir, whatever your small business is or your micro business, we are helping people, sir, on the basis not of the collateral that they can bring. Gone, and hopefully forever, are the days when Barbadians who are working class, born and bred, are being told, well, you can't get any help to get the money because nobody knows nothing about your background in commerce. Nobody knows nothing about your background in business. You can't bring any collateral to show what property you own so that we could give you a loan against that collateral. What security you have. You don't have any security, go back out through the door. This government has radically transformed that, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I wonder sometimes how it is that we could be living through a period of transformation such as this and not understand the nature, the very nature and symbolism of the transformation. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I hear the lamentations. I understand the difficulties. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West being beaten up because of a bus service that he inherited that had 40-odd buses working. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, when the ideal for Barbados was 190 buses, he could tell you if he found 45 working on any given day, it was a miracle. Nobody invested for 10 years in a new bus in this country. You know, and then you are made to feel as though this should all be cured immediately. And we agree that better has to be done. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, have a heart. It is this Honourable Member for Christchurch West who is saying to the country, look, I mean, we're going to build a relationship with the people who are in the private sector, and we are going to make sure that if they're willing to work with us, we can get their buses added to ours and get 60-odd buses on the road, as I believe there are today. Mr. Speaker, sir, but you cannot just forever live as though you are in in a blinkered environment where your ears are covered, your eyes cover over, and all you see is the politics of destruction of a party and trying to make a silly little political point about how much the government changed in a year, when we know we came from a place where we didn't even have buses on the road. During the campaign, Mr. Speaker, sir, lest people forget in this country, there was social media, WhatsApps and so on going around Barbados with a transport board bus that had no middle. People sat on 2 seats, and in the middle of the bus, you look down, you see the road. You remember it, Mr. Speaker, sir?
I remember that.
We had pictures of buses burning in the street. You remember that, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Yes.
That was the state of decay and disrepair that we're fighting back, clawing our way back against. And what of the sanitation situation in the country? When for 6 months, there were people, six weeks at a time, there were people, sir, who could not get any sanitation service. And we had, sir, travel advisories issued against us from the United States of America. That's how last year started. Don't mind that we ended last year in record position. Between January and May, under the last administration, sir, travel advisory against Barbados from England, travel advisory against Barbados from the United States of America. 2 major source markets.
Russia.
Not satisfied, still not satisfied. Travel advisory, sir, from Canada. Travel advisory, sir, from Germany. For sewage and for the fact that they had garbage all through the South Coast and all through the West Coast. Uncleaned, uncollected. Well, the honourable member cannot say hocus pocus abracadabra and correct that, but we have fixed the sewage system, Mr. Speaker, sir, which helps the tourism product considerably. We are working, Mr. Speaker, sir, on dealing with the trucks for the sanitation purposes. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, let us understand where we came from. That more money was spent on building a headquarters, which remain closed, than on buying garbage trucks for Barbados. That's a fact. And not only that, what kind of carpet it is. Folks supposed to be coming out of the dump and coming out of the different sites and going to the office, and downstairs the officer ain't more carpet than what we got in this House of Assembly here. Huh? Wall floor totally wrong. You can't be serious, sir. And nearly $40 million was spent on that, but not a dime on a garbage truck. And then they expect this new administration, sir, to be able to correct all of that just by snapping your finger. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are looking at the different levels of challenges that we've had in this country.
Okay.
And part of that which this represents today, this debate is about, sir, this talk about the Hyatt, is taking it a step further so as to make sure that we are in a position. I looked carefully, sir. One of the challenges to the development was the issue of the likelihood of there needing to be space even across the street. Well, how you solve the space across the street? Bay Street is always busy. But if you need to have additional facilities across the street, what are you going to do? You can dig it up and block off the whole of Bay Street now. Can't do that. So what are you going to do? So we can build a bridge across the top if need be. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have worked across, we've looked at the thing holistically. We are now, I believe I am mindful of the time, sir. The time is up. I have given
you a little leeway.
Oh,
so you
I will
have
not abuse it. So I just, you know, as I started to speak to tourism and growth, I could not help but reflect on the totality of the effort being made by the government, of which I'm so happy to be a part. The Herculean effort being made, sir, and the unfortunate outpouring out there from critics who are not really constructive, who seem to be wanting to make mischief rather than anything else. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we look at the things that are happening, the transformation journey may not go as fast as all would like, but the fact of the matter is, sir, it cannot be denied that there is a transformative journey taking place. And this, sir, is but another step along the way. And I give it my fullest support, sir. And I wish I could say that I'd be willing to come back again, but I can't do that. I'm obliged to you, Mr.
Thank
Speaker.
you. Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for St. James Central was his usual fulsome and erudite self and has covered much ground. And so I will not detain the House very long, but I thought I needed to indicate, and building upon what the Honourable Member who just took his seat would have said, I need to indicate that, or to remind the public that this is a government that does not run away from its responsibilities to people. And so we recognize that we are in an economic situation where there are persons who need work, who did not have work before we came into office, and there are persons who have been separated from employment since we came into office. We recognize that. We have spoken to the country about the reasons that necessitated that action. But we've also said to the country that we would do all in our power to get people back into employment in the shortest possible time. Tourism, for many years, has been the driver of economic activity in the country. And we've said for quite a while that tourism pays the bills. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if people are to go back to work, if the economy is to continue on the momentum that has already begun, then it means that tourism will need to take its place as the generator or the primary generator of employment in this country. Tourism will carry the country. Barbados, not unlike other countries in the Caribbean, we are known to be maybe the most tourism-dependent region in the world. But as we navigate the rescuing and rebuilding and the transformation of the country, that moves from just being a statement to being a fact that we as a government and as a country must recognize and must act upon. We are dependent on tourism, and so if we are going to grow, if our people are to be put back into work, then tourism is going to need to lead the way. That means, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that there must be investment in tourism. Whether that investment is the redevelopment of existing tourism businesses, whether that investment is greenfield, new investment, whatever kind of investment it is, the investment in the industry is absolutely necessary if we are going to have the economic activity that will cause that will call for additional jobs and so put our people back to work. That investment, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we see taking place as we speak. There are some redevelopment initiatives taking place. There is, I see, as I pass on the South Coast, I passed yesterday, and I saw the hoarding down at the property in Worthing, which used to be called Sandy Beach. And I see some activity happening there. That, of course, will mean that jobs will be generated on that site and in that business. Bay Street, as the Honourable Member for St. James Central indicated earlier, the Bay Street development, or what we call the Hyatt development, has been an interesting experience. And I, unlike he, as in the Honourable Member for St. James Central, am new to this place and maybe new to politics. But I recognize a certain, in some cases, silliness, in some cases, just politicking, in some cases, naivety. But what I recognize, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the party of which I am honored to be a part, a party founded by the now Right Excellent Sir Grantley Adams, I recognize in this party an understanding of a reality. And so I want to add my voice to the Honourable Member's voice when he says that even though in the lead up to the election, we expressed significant concern about the consolidation of wealth, we expressed significant concern about these people who seem to be very highly favored. We were not sure of the reasons for the high favoring, but on coming into office and on recognizing what needed to be done, our approach has been that those who are in a position to execute projects should not be unduly hindered. But we have taken the position that any gains coming out of these investments, coming out of these developments, should not be gains that will go into the pockets of ministers of government, but these gains should be such as would encourage the employment of ordinary Barbadians. These gains should be such as would encourage the development of areas surrounding the development that is taking place. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is what a responsible government will do. The idea that on coming into office, we would stop people from doing what they have the capacity to do, and I refer to investment, strikes me as being a bit childish. It strikes me as being the thinking of 4-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds, where because we had a fight yesterday, and today you are in a position where you can assist, not me, but the country, I make the decision or take the decision that I don't want you to help the country. That, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is not the posture of a mature administration. As a matter of fact, if that were the posture of an administration, then that administration, I almost want to say should not last 5 years. The revolutionary part of me is, the revolutionary thinking in me kind of, no, that's not where I'm going, but the revolutionary thinking in me suggests that the administration should be removed from office even before the 5 years are up. That kind of posturing does not benefit the country, and if it does not benefit the country, then it does not benefit ordinary people in the country. And I think that any administration must approach these matters in a mature way, must approach these matters not just thinking about all the bad practices of the previous administration, but thinking in a more focused way on how can we develop the country, how can we get people back to work. And as Minister responsible for Labour, Mr. Deputy Speaker, my concern is that people need work. And they need work to do a number of things, to validate themselves. I speak to men, especially young men, all the time. And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, as a man myself, and speaking to men, men have a desire to provide for themselves and for their families. And when a man cannot provide for himself or his family, he feels less than a man. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when a young man turns to what we call deviant behavior, I recognize that he has a responsibility for the direction that he has taken, but as a government, we have a responsibility to him as well, to provide opportunities that would allow him not to have to take sometimes the direction that some young people take. And I don't want to be gender biased in this, because women as well feel the need to earn, feel the need to contribute to themselves and to their families. And when they're not in a position to do that, then they feel less than they should, because they have the potential to contribute, the potential to help in the development of the country. And as a government, we have a responsibility to do all in our power once it is above board. And the Honourable Member for St. Andrew would have indicated that much of what we are talking about this morning was put in place by the last administration. But as a responsible government, we do not subscribe to the view that you throw out the baby with the bathwater. That makes no sense to mature, responsible adults. We don't go that road. And so once no rules are being broken, once pockets are not being lined, once people can benefit, we believe that we have a responsibility to the country and to the people of the country to ensure that we do what we can to facilitate development. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say to you, and I want to say to the country, we are not about tit-for-tat government. We are not about throwing out baby with the bathwater, as I indicated earlier. We are not about immature responses to what would have taken place in the past. We are about developing a country and allowing people to to be able to earn a living in this country. I also want to say a little bit, and I know the Honourable Member for St. James Central has spoken to it quite a bit, but this matter of planning gains, I've spoken to on a number of occasions in this Honourable Chamber before. And I want the public to be reminded of the idea of planning gains. Now, planning gains is not new. It is not new to economic development. It is also not new to Barbados and to our legislation. But in the past, planning gains, especially in the last 10 years, or maybe in the last 10 years, planning gains has amounted to gains for the ministers who sign documents. So you would hear things like, my pen has no ink. And so it is expected that the gain would be to provide ink, proverbial ink, for the minister's pen. I want to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the government of which I'm a part, and the party that I represent in government, has taken, maybe I should say resurrected, the idea of planning gains to ensure that we're not just creating a situation where people can get work out of the investments and the developments that will be happening in Bay Street and in other places, but that communities also benefit. Communities where we're not necessarily talking about people just getting employment, but the infrastructure around the communities, whether it is drainage, whether it relates to play parks, whether it relates to the refurbishment of theaters or other places of public interest, whatever these gains may be, We, as a government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, are we are placing a renewed emphasis on the matter of planning gains, because we believe that in development, the country must benefit. And in development, especially the communities that surround the development must benefit. The Honourable Member for the City sometimes reflects that there is often a disconnect between the commercial aspect of the city and the residential aspect of the city. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, in Labour Party style, we acknowledge that in the past we may have been guilty ourselves of that. We may have been. But we are taking a new approach. We have taken a fresh guard. And we are saying, in this case, to the people of the city, that where there is economic activity, where there's investment, and where there is going to be a resulting commercial enterprise coming to the fore, that the communities where the people live, the real people live, those communities will not be abandoned. Those communities will not be ignored. Those communities will benefit from the investment that takes place on the commercial side. And I want us to keep that in mind. I want that Barbadians, as they continue to hold faith with us, as they continue to steer the course, as they continue to recognize in true Barbadian style that Rome, not Bridgetown, but Rome, was not built in a day. And as they continue to recognize that we are on the right path, I want them to continue to recognize that we have the interests of the people at heart, and so we're pushing ahead with investments that will realize the dreams of the people. We also have the interests of surrounding communities at heart, so that the communities will benefit from the investments that will take place in our country. This government will not engage in investment at any cost. And I speak specifically now to, and just for 2 minutes, to the development that we hope will take place at Haywoods in St. Peter. Because many of my constituents in St. Peter want that development to take place. And they want it to take place because they recognize that the economic activity will generate jobs and other kinds of benefits for the residents and the other stakeholders in St. Peter. But we say to them, like we say to the investors in Carlisle Bay and the investors in Hyatt, it will not be at any cost. We will seek investment. We will encourage investment. We will facilitate investment. But at the end of the day, the country as a whole must be the beneficiary. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with those few words, I have the pleasure of supporting this resolution to vest the lands at Bay Street as indicated by the Honourable Member for St. Andrew. And I want to commend the maturity of government in continuing this process so that economic activity can be spurred and the country can benefit. And I believe that Barbadians generally will recognize the maturity and will continue to hold faith with us as we continue to ensure that the country, the bleeding is not just stemmed, but that there's development and ultimately transformation of our beloved country. I'm obliged to you.
Member for Michael West.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I shall trouble you very briefly this morning, this afternoon. I'm a little surprised at the contribution of my honourable friend who last spoke, member for St. Peter. He's usually much more mature in terms of his focus during his presentations in this honourable chamber. and I have from time to time been enlightened by some of what he has had to say. Today he's failed to meet that standard. He has joined his honourable colleague from St. James Central by presenting what he himself, the honourable member of St. Peter, characterized as the presentations or the arguments of a 4-year-old. I found that both of these honourable gentlemen, when they spoke today, rather than deal with the meat of the matter, sought simply to set up some straw men, create some false bases for arguments, reflect negatively on opposition elements who do not now sit here and in their estimation and prognostications will never ever sit here. A waste of the Parliament's time, a waste of your time, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, the honourable member of St. James Central is wont to do that. It is clearly established that he cannot ever properly speak in this chamber unless he finds some target on the other side to attack, even when others on the other side have said nothing in the debate. So I want to simply make a few brief remarks because I haven't heard a lot of substance to which to respond today. It is clear to me that the government struggles with the charge, not only made by the opposition, but by elements in Barbados who are knowledgeable and expert in some respects in these matters. The government continues to struggle with the charge that there is an evident lack of a growth plan and a growth strategy on its part. Every speech these days you hear from a government voice goes to that. It is defensive, it is vague, a whole set of generalizations. But I don't want to deal necessarily with that today. But from these presentations which we have heard here, clearly that eats at the inners of the government of the day, the charge not coming only from opposition voices, but from respected and learned voices in this country, that there's no clear growth strategy for bringing Barbados out of its present economic situation. Clearly, as well, the government struggles with the charge, and this charge has not been expressed by an opposition voice, either in here or outside. Not the official opposition, anyhow. But clearly the government struggles with the charge that when in opposition, it raised a lot of questions around the operations, the undertakings, the enterprises, the endeavors of a particular individual developer in this country. Now, in the office of government, that seems not to be the case. Now, this voice that speaks in this chamber on behalf of the official opposition has never said that this government or any government in Barbados should not deal with any particular developer. I've never said that. I will never say that unless there's a clear case established as to why the government should not. What we have said is that if you are going to approve developments based on your track record when you were in opposition, you need to give full disclosure to what you are doing, take the public on board in terms of what you are doing, and establish clear reasons to justify the actions you are taking. That is all that has been said. But they come here today and want to make it seem that you take a 4-year-old position and suggest that the government should not deal with developer A or developer B. That has not been the case, and that is not the issue with me or with us. If you are going to deal with a particular developer in a massive and major development project on the city side, the St. Michael South, the St. Michael West side of Barbados, wherever it is, tell the people of Barbados clearly why this developer and what you are about. That is all that has been said. That is all that has been said. I long heard she who is now Honourable Prime Minister of this country make it clear on a platform at Codrington when in opposition. And she identified a particular developer. And she said then, I am not saying that he should not be able to do investments in Barbados. And when we get into government and he has investments which are viable, we will facilitate them because he's a Barbadian like anybody else. And I've long supported that view and applauded that position. So to come here, because the public has you under stress, because they see a divergence between your position previously held while in opposition and the one you now seem to take. And because that creates pressure on you, you want to come here and pin it on the opposition that we don't want you to facilitate certain developments. That is a nonsense, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of which I am sure you are entirely aware. I am talking about the public's perception. I am not saying there's any divergence. I'm saying the public seems to perceive you are behaving differently now. And because that is creating stress for you, you're responding to that, and you want to lay the charge at the doorstep of the opposition.
All right, please allow the members to speak. Allow the members to speak. Continue, member.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I think you understand clearly what I'm trying to say, and I have a strong feeling that you agree as well. Mr. Speaker, may I quote from this document? On the side of cruise tourism...
Which document quoting from?
This is the speech given by the leader of the opposition a few months ago in response to budgetary proposals, the financial statement delivered by the Honourable Prime Minister. On the side of cruise tourism, the USA is by far the largest source market for cruise tourism to the Caribbean, but not traditionally our largest source market for visitors to Barbados. With this in mind, greater emphasis must be placed on further development of this source market to take advantage of increases in cruise travelers, since cruise demand is continuing to outpace supply globally. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the above, and an effort to increase cruise tourism spend, while capitalizing on the increases of cruise tourism, Barbados must expand the variety and number of tours available to cruise travelers. Trends in cruise tourism show that today's cruisers want transformational experiences that go far beyond coach and walk-in tours. Cruisers today, particularly young adults and millennials, want cultural experiences as well as adventurous experiences. With this in mind, Barbados must seek to expand its tourism product offering by incentivizing tour companies to establish new cultural experience tours for our day visitors, which include food and musical experiences, Oistins style, very phrase that the honourable member for St. James, the Minister of Tourism, used a little while ago, but created specifically for cruise travelers to experience between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. when they're on shore. A Brandon's, a Folkestone, a Harry Smith daytime Oistin-type community cultural experience. This can be achieved through public-private sector partnerships as well as foreign direct investment in this sector. We must move beyond the over-dominant investment vehicle of hotel infrastructure and restaurant and nightclub. Barbados must seek to diversify its tourism offerings substantially if it is to remain relevant in a competitive global tourism. And you understand yet the point? You understand? You need to listen. The Honourable Member St. George South needs to listen. He understands what's going on in this debate, you know. He does not understand what's going on in this debate.
All right, please. Please.
He
Member.
He has no idea what's going on in this debate.
Okay. You'll have your chance.
The Honourable Minister.
Please.
The Honourable
Member.
Minister for Tourism.
Member, you are to address the chair.
I'm speaking to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Honourable.
Yes. Please, do not shout across the floor.
The Honourable Minister
address the chair, please.
of Tourism, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Honourable Member for St. James Central got up in here and tried to characterize negatively the mindset, thought processes, the thinking, and the submissions in this chamber relative to matters like this, and then went on to pump a set, Mr. Speaker. Do you know what that means? As though what you're doing at Pelican, did he say? And having people from St. Michael South and the city and St. Michael West and vendors come interact with tourists because the tourist ships are leaving, as though this is something novel, new, and originating in his bosom. A few months ago, I put this in here. He derided me for those types of things. Well, thank you. You should have said that when you were on your feet, because that was suggested, that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was suggested over here. That, Mr. Speaker, was suggested. That,
Please.
Mr. Speaker, was suggested. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Please, allow the member to speak. Continue, member.
That, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was suggested here a few months ago when I replied to the budgetary presentations of the Honourable Minister of Finance. The very phrasing used here, oisting type.
You're saying is your idea? On the point of order.
It would be so good as to give way. I just want to refresh his memory, sir, that it was in the month of March. He's referring to a speech he made in April, I believe. But in the month of March, sir, I sat in the well of the House, and I outlined all those things that the honourable member then subsequently came in April and said should happen. So I'm not entirely sure, sir, if he wants to get the House caught up in a pointless which came first, chicken or the egg game. The point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that as usual, the Labour Party promised, the Labour Party delivered. That's what matters.
Continue.
Applaud all you want. They can, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The facts will speak for itself. I said that in here a few months ago. He repeated it, quoted it today, and made to suggest that it is originating with him and that those types of thoughts do not occupy the heads of those who sit over here. Mr. Speaker, he also very fleetingly and without specific reference made some snide remark with reference to the opposition's position on Ross University and the Ross University presence here. I want to quote from this document, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Again, listen to me very carefully, because he's trying to give this Parliament, the Honourable Member St. James Central is, and the public of Barbados, the impression that the opposition has taken a stance against the Ross presence here. I want to read from the speech. It's a document of this House, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We welcome, I'm quoting Mr. Deputy Speaker, we welcome the Ross University. We welcome the Ross University, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
Those words clear to you?
Yes.
And we look forward to the economic and other benefits to be served by its presence. You understand those words, Mr. Speaker? I want to read it again. We welcome the Ross University presence, and we look forward to the economic and other benefits to be served by its presence. Hear me very carefully, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Even though the transfer of its interest here and its setup at Corverley seem to have left some questions unanswered. That's the statement. But I have long, Mr. Speaker, are you still with me, Mr.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker?
Continue.
But I have long touted the wisdom and the practicality of trying to attract the investment interests of other types of offshore institutions beyond medical schools and in addition to medical schools. The area of forensics is a fast-growing area, the area of technologies and others, and we also mooted the view that a college or university for arts and film and other cultural subject matter might be considered in terms of boosting our tourism platform here in Barbados. So to stand here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and to in any way suggest that the opposition took a position against Ross, when all in fact we asked for was clarity with reference to the questions being raised in the public arena, is not serving well the interests of this party. So this festive Friday's business is a catchy name, but the idea is not novel and does not originate in the bosom of he who spoke. Now, the Honourable Member for St. Andrew, the Minister with responsibility for lands and housing, when he introduced the measure, spoke with reference to the bridge and made it clear to us that there is some uncertainty with reference to whether or not the bridge will be a part of the project in its construction and development. And I understand that, I appreciate that. That was clear, that there may be a bridge, there may not be a bridge. When I heard it, I wondered what type of bridge we're talking about. We think of a bridge, we think of a structure that goes over, through the air, connects one side to the other side, that type of thing. But there's some bridges that go under as well, because you're connecting geography A to geography B, you're crossing a space, you can go under, you can, and he did not make it clear. And I simply noted that I wanted to ask for a bit more on the bridge, if it were available to the Honourable Member St. Andrew. That is all I was going to ask if I spoke in this debate today. But the submission of the Honourable Member from St. James Central was so without lack of substance and relevance to the matter, it brought me to my feet. Now, he spoke of those who proselytize. Now, I do not know what it has to do with the debate on a land project for tourism development at Bay Street. But he spoke of those outside of this chamber who are proselytizing and going on the television station as though it's not a public television station operated by the state, you know. So now, this is he, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who departed his own party. This is he, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who departed his own party for mercenary advancement. You hear me clearly, Mr. Deputy Speaker? This is he who departed his own party.
You're speaking about Honourable Member.
Honourable Member, yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is he who departed his own party for mercenary advancement. Today, he speaks of those who proselytize. This is the world in which...
On a point of order?
I believe the Honourable knows that that which he has uttered is entirely unparliamentary. You cannot say of an honourable member that he acted in a mercenary way, sir. I believe that that does not conform with the rules of this House, and I am inviting you, sir, to rule accordingly.
Yeah, but that's why you asked if you're speaking on an honourable member.
It is he who crossed...
You're speaking about a member here.
Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking about the all members of St. James Central, and if it is your wish and desire, I take that back. And humbly I do so. I take back that phrasing, Mr. Speaker, that he departed his party for mercenary advancement.
Right.
I simply mean to communicate that he went to a position where he could better market his skills. That is all. Is that acceptable? Is that acceptable?
Okay, so the first one is struck from the record. The first...
So we can live, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that he went to a place where he can better market his skills. Can we live with that? Or
yes.
Do you want for me to take that back?
No, that is okay.
He's now in a better place.
Continue, please. Can you continue, please? I remember you have your chance to wait up. Go ahead, continue.
The same honourable member, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and that's member of St. James Central. And you are very well aware of this. This is the same voice that assailed the dignity of the estate of womanhood in this country, same honorable voice that assailed the dignity of the estate of womanhood in this country, who now dares to tell people, because they offer a view on political and economic matters in Barbados, they are proselytes and indulging in proselytizing, and will never have the opportunity to sit in this parliament. You remember the phrase, 1,000 pounds of blubber?
No, you don't remember that.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
It was said in this parliament. You completed?
No, I'm finished.
You're finished?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You haven't seen anything yet?
Member for St. George South.
Thank you,
Member for St.
Mr.
George
Speaker.
South.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my voice to this debate to show my appreciation and also my support for the resolution being debated in this lower chamber. And it is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that I have to speak after the member for St. Michael West. And it is the first time I heard him speak about the honorable member for St. Peter, who in my view is one of the better debaters that I have witnessed in this lower chamber. And for him to try to castigate the honorable member for making two references that are indeed profound and of value, and then for the honorable member for St. Michael West to rise in this lower chamber and behave as though he's not an apostle, because the good Lord in his book said, "Judge ye not, lest ye be judged." And also, he is asked for those who sit in high office in the pulpit to forgive people, and indeed for him to throw such a low blow in this lower chamber at the member for St. James Central. I have to question that honorable member's integrity now as it relates to his duties outside of this lower chamber, and I make no apologies for my statement. But, Mr. Speaker,
Yeah.
You would allow that? You would allow that?
I didn't hear you.
You didn't hear? Ask him to repeat it. I heard it.
Okay.
Parliament heard it. The public heard it. You would allow that?
I was speaking to the clerk of parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I in no way can ask you how to preside or carry out duties in this lower chamber, but I would respect that the honourable member for St. Michael West to rise on a point of order when he rises in this chamber, as opposed to just jump up to interrupt.
Can you repeat what he said? Because I didn't hear it.
Hey,
Just a minute.
I do not have time to waste. I'm simply asking if you would allow that. I don't have time to waste with our member St. George South. He usually struggles with his contributions in this house anyway. I'm not surprised he's struggling today.
You can see struggle.
All right, please, let's keep it clean, please. Member, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the Barbados Labour Party came to the people of this country, and indeed, we prepared a manifesto that if the public examines every single page from cover to back page, you would see the signature of the member for St. Michael West in this manifesto as it relates to government policy and what we stand for as a party and as a political institution 80 years and moving on. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, on page 3, the Barbados Labour Party stands for good and transparent government. And I will begin there because I am going to the resolution after giving this preamble. We stand for good and transparent governance. The Barbados Labour Party stands for improving the livelihood of all of our people and widening economic enfranchisement That's 2. The Barbados Labour Party stands for fair treatment, and I think the honourable member should listen to this one because he signed this document. For fair treatment and just reward for all, workers and investors alike. Workers and investors alike. So, Mr. Speaker, when the honourable member can raise questions around the operational enterprises with regard to a particular developer by this government, because he said so when in opposition, it raised questions around operational enterprises, operation with regard to a particular developer. I sat in opposition where the member for St. Michael Northwest sits now. And indeed, I remember speaking on the Hyatt Hotel and how the former government introduced the Hyatt Hotel to the people of this country. The honourable member for St. Michael West was not so fortunate back then to enter the chambers, thanks to us again and the Herculean efforts by the Prime Minister. And this team that dragged him along, and he's back in here. No one has sent anybody to St. George South to help me.
Point of order. The member read on point of order.
Point of order. You see, I've heard this reference before from others, but how I got here and how this body had to go to this place and drag me along. Mr. Deputy Speaker, are you aware that the Barbados Labour Party in the last election got about 75% of the turnout, the vote? You aware of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker?
75%.
Are you aware that the member for St. Michael West got about 78% of the vote in his constituency? Do you recognize, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that honourable member got a higher percentage of the vote in the last election than the party's national average achievement across this island? Mr. Deputy Speaker, do you understand that?
Continue, member.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The honourable member, based on what he just said, he only got 3% of the vote. So, you only got 3% of the vote, you. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me carry on, because I sat in where the member for St. Michael Northwest sits presently. And I remember entering the debate on behalf of the opposition. And I remembered saying in this lower chamber that we as a government, and it speaks to transparency, as an opposition then, we have to be fair in whatever we do. And we were sending a message to the former administration. And I'm going to speak on the substance of the last administration as it relates to this project on the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Because the honourable member for St. Michael West, he knows different. He sent a little, criticism at me, level it at me, but I don't mind that. Because at the end of the day, he knows what is happening. And we criticized the opposition then, criticized the former government, including the member for St. Michael West, for not following all of the town planning recommendations. And the former Prime Minister approved a project on a small parcel of land, 15 stories, and when an area was requested from a stakeholder, the former Prime Minister ignored the stakeholder's request to conduct the environmental impact assessment for the Hyatt Hotel. The former Prime Minister refused to reply to the stakeholders' request to meet and to discuss and to have a town hall meeting on the project. But the honourable member for St. Michael West will come here and speak to perception, public perception. But the Barbados Labour Party has a proud legacy. And that is why the first order of the day was to return some respectability to the social partnership in this country, the proud legacy of the Barbados Labour Party, because we sought to involve every single stakeholder in our decision making. And it was said at those stakeholder meetings that we have no problem with the Hyatt Hotel. So what we did as a government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we redefined the project. We remodeled the project, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So we have before us, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a land acquisition resolution, which is part of a holistic approach to development in this country.
We are talking about the vesting.
The vesting,
Yeah.
which is part of a comprehensive policy for development by this administration. And indeed, I heard the Honourable Member for St. James Central. He spoke about the size of the footprint. He spoke about acquiring 2 other sites with respect to treating with not only the investors, but what we continue to preach as a government and what we stand for as a Labour Party, the empowerment and the enfranchisement of our people. So this project is not just about the investor takes it all. This project is about empowering people from around the various neighborhoods, the city of Bridgetown, St. Michael South, St. Michael South Central, St. Michael West. And it speaks to development of the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. So it is a tourism project, yes. But when you look at it, the Prime Minister spoke recently on the whole aspect of having a space for vendors. For vendors where we can empower the small business class in this country, where we can have space for entrepreneurs to benefit. So when we sit here and we listen to the lack of disclosure and giving full disclosure and justifying the actions you're taking, and it being a massive city site, of course we are looking at disclosure. We are justifying our actions, Mr. Speaker. We are going to the public and we are letting them know that the project that we saw and we inherited is not the same project that we are about to embark on. But yes, we are using the same investor. But we are bringing along people with us, businesses, the vendors, the taxi drivers, those small persons who ply their trade in the city. We are bringing along those persons with us. So for the member for St. Michael West to get up and speak about lack of disclosure and full disclosure by this government, I take offense to it. We are not hiding anything, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, sorry. And in the preamble, I spoke about transparency. That is what we are doing. The last administration, they did not hold a town hall meeting. We are signatory to the UNESCO World Heritage Organization. We sign on to these treaties that protect us. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, that's what UNESCO is. To preserve our heritage and our culture. It's of significance to the tourism product. Of significance to the tourism product. I didn't hear the Honourable Member for St. Michael West speak about those aspects of the project and why we had to intervene with the last administration. I would like when the Honourable Member, I have a lot of respect for him. But when he speaks ill of the same administration that he planned this excellent document, and I will speak to tourism when I wrap up, because you tell me I don't know anything. But I will speak to page 36 and 37 of this document to let you know that there's nothing new that you are bringing to the table. And I think you go home and you read this document and then you come to this Lord Chamber, because there's no other reference. Because, Mr. Speaker, one of the fundamental aspects of this project is to maintain our UNESCO culture and heritage designation. Countries are losing it, but we will make sure that the footprint that we are building on, we maintain our heritage and cultural disposition, because it is of significance to us. And that is one of the ways we will attract investment to this country. So we're not just going to put up no 15-story building on a small footprint. We will make sure we do our AAA studies and involve our stakeholders, and we will make sure that we bring along people. So there is nothing that we have not disclosed about this project. You heard the Honourable Member for St. Peter. He spoke about the bridge, which may or may not occur. But we leave that technical evaluation to the engineers. And of course, when the time comes, we'll come back to the chamber. We will have town hall meetings, and we will invite you, the Honourable Member for St. Michael West, full disclosure and transparency as a government. And we urge you to allow some of your small business people to get involved in this project and stop criticizing us unnecessarily so. But, Mr. Speaker, I now turn to page 36 and 37 of the said manifesto that the member for St. Michael West signed on to, that speaks to Barbados' visitor economy, tourism and hospitality, the one that he signed and abandoned, not even midway, but, you know, and he speaks to the Honourable Member for St. James Central in such derogatory terms, and want to jump up in this Lord Chamber, you know, to say that I'm saying something that I should not be saying, or something that is inappropriate. And I wouldn't do that to you, Member for St. Michael West. Judge ye, lest ye be judged. And I didn't expect that you, as a man of the cloth, to rise in this chamber to bring back years and years of a member who sat on the other side, then for you to talk about 10,000 pounds of blubber and to throw low blows as opposed to debating something of substance, which I'm going to do and show you that I know about what is going on as it relates to tourism and the new frontiers that we have to push and open. And there's nothing new coming from the member for St. Michael West, who soon won't be the member for St. Michael West. Don't worry about it. There are niche areas, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the Barbados Labour Party have identified for developing as it relates to tourism. Entertainment, health. We spoke about heritage just now. We spoke about sports. We spoke about yachting, arbitration, agro. And these are the areas that we intend to support the private sector in providing these high-value services to attract people to this country. So we are not just looking at the traditional tourism areas. And, Mr. Speaker, we know that tourism and the hospitality sector is the biggest contributor to the creation of jobs in this country and to the earning of foreign exchange. So we, as a government, when we prepare this manifesto, we recognize that the traditional way of executing our tourism product and marketing our tourism product was indeed becoming, I don't want to use the word antiquated, but was indeed becoming stale, and we needed to push new frontiers and open new avenues to attract tourists to this country. And indeed, we have listed all of them, most of them here, and I will list a few. Establishing a focal point and single electronic window for investment in the tourism sector in order to streamline the speed and efficiency of the investment process. That speaks to the ICT platform as it will assist in helping our tourism product. We spoke about working with the International Green Climate Fund and similar agencies to establish a Barbados Green Fund to help shift the tourism and hospitality sector toward using renewable energies, water collection and food storage, and the development of low impact and sustainable eco-tourism. And right in St. George South, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable says, I don't know anything. Right in St. George South, I am on the verge of developing a gully project, an eco-tourism gully project that will utilize renewable energy and will attract tourists to rural Barbados in the constituency of St. George South. And I have a team working on it. And I took that directly from what is articulated in our manifesto, that we as a government, we can't just come in and maintain status quo. We have to push and create new avenues to attract tourists in this country. And for the member for St. Michael West to rise in this chamber to say that we are not pushing new frontiers and opening new avenues for tourism, and that he is the author and not the honourable member for St. Michael, for St. James Central. Indeed, he's the author because he signed on to this document. Right next to the Honourable Prime Minister of this country, his signature is the closest to hers in this document. So I would like the honourable member to take this document and share with his new party, page 36 and 37, as it relates to tourism development in this country. I want to spend the next 2 minutes, though, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, saying to this country, the Barbados Labour Party has a proud track record, and we continue to articulate that within the years 1994, it is, to 2008, we created the most jobs in this country. Indeed, we had the most investment in this country. So this party has a proud track record. And the honourable member, I'm not sure if he's still a card-carrying member, but the honourable member knows very well that we as a party and as an institution, an 80-year-old institution, we did it before, and indeed we know how to do it. And it is nothing new for us to realize that when we lure investors to this country, it is not just about foreign exchange, but it is about empowerment and enfranchisement of our people. It is not that the investors take it all. We have to impact those families in the surrounding neighborhoods. We have to impact businesses in the surrounding neighborhoods so that we can build a vibrant micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. It is not just about tourism. It is about other related businesses that tourism will indeed lead and indeed create those businesses so that we, in the Ministry of Small Business, Entrepreneurship, and Commerce, when we build out our Small Business Development Center around the Financial Literacy Bureau and the clusters that we are indeed embarking upon, to build out that sector, and indeed not only to build the sector, but to measure growth. To measure growth. Because we recognize the last 10 years we have everyone operating in silos, pockets of silos. But through the Small Business Development Center, we indeed, through our ICT platform, we will be able to measure not only the inputs and the outputs, but generally the number of persons who would have been employed and the contribution of the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector to our growth and economic development. So I see this project as part of a holistic trust in terms of growing our economy and indeed building out various sectors in renewable energy, youth, the blue economy, health services, So we have a plan, and when I hear the honourable member speak about no growth plan, I mean, it pains me. And the member for St. Michael Central spoke about the trust loans. I don't want to go there, because come Sunday night, I will spend a long time there on entrepreneurship and what we have done. So if you want to hear the member for St. Michael St. West, come on down to Carlisle Car Park. You are welcome. You have been there before. You held my hand there, and you offered me good advice. Now you want to criticize me. I haven't changed. The honourable member for St. James Central hasn't changed. You seem to be the person that has changed. And I'm sorry if I offended you with my comment being outside, but you offended me with your comment when you attacked the member for St. James Central. For years and years gone by, you have to forgive. And that is why he's sitting here as an integral part of this team and leading the tourism sector, because we forgive him. Everything, you are the priest, you should be telling me everything he has done.
All right, you have 3 minutes to conclude.
I don't need 3 minutes, Mr. Speaker. I think I have explained to the country that we are guided by our manifesto, and indeed we have full disclosure and transparency with respect to this project that we are embarking upon. We have indeed changed the footprint of the project by the last administration, who was doing it incorrectly, did not do any EIA studies and allocated the project to start, signed on the dotted line, the former Prime Minister. And we came to office and we said to the developer, let's sit down, let's rework this project. It is a good project in its conception stage, but let's work it so that it can benefit this country. You can benefit, and also other people in this country can benefit. The acquisition of land, Mr. Speaker, I have seen government acquire lands. It is about negotiation. The landowners, we are doing nothing wrong. We are acquiring land based on our statute. That is our right to acquire land. And it is our right to treat people, the landowners, fairly. I don't think that this government is doing anything, hiding anything, trying to steal people's lands. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say to the people of this country that there is indeed full transparency and full disclosure as we embark on a project that will indeed assist us in building out our tourism product in our World Heritage designated site from Bay Street straight up to the historic garrison. It will allow the small businesses in this country, the taxi drivers and the vendors, to have a space whereby they can ply their trade in a very wholesome and decent and civil way. It allows other small businesses indeed to access the trust loans, whether it's hairdressers, it's barbers. So it's not just about investors coming in and taking all. It is about us carrying a holistic approach, and it is us empowering our people. It's all about empowerment and economic enfranchisement of our people. And I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Obliged. Member for the city.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the robust nature of the exchanges this morning has touched the generosity of the leader of the House, and so I beg that the sitting be suspended for lunch until 3 p.m.
Question is that this will be suspended until 3 p.m. today. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. We are now suspended until 3 p.m. today. Thank you.